Chapter 118 Warriors of Bo City. After pushing Xinxia out of the shopping mall in her wheelchair, Mo Fan saw the few remaining black beasts, who were crawling around in pain. The corpses of 3 of them were in many parts. It looked like they had been ripped apart by other creatures. Fortunately, the ones that had survived the fall were able to jump to another location. However, these kinds of magical beasts that had sustained great damage were even more tasty than humans to other magical beasts. They would probably be eaten if they were to walk away. Outside of the city, the magical beasts would attempt to kill each other. This was because a magical beast's body emits an energy that was similar to a magic stone. Due to this reason, there were many magical beasts who would fight to the death in order to obtain the carcass of a creature of a higher level. "We have to get to the GMA highway. That way it will be much safer for us to get to the safety shelters," Mo Fan told Xinxia. Xinxia nodded. However, her face displayed a trace of worry. Mo Fan smiled slightly as he said to Xinxia, "Don't worry, we won't encounter any magical beasts." Xinxia looked at Mo Fan in confusion. This area is clearly surrounded by magical beasts, so why did he say we won't encounter any? Aren't those words of consolement a bit too far-fetched? Mo Fan pushed Xinxia along the avenue. He would sometimes walk, and sometimes stop. Sometimes, he would suddenly increase their speed, and other times, he would find a place to hide. However, his seemingly strange actions allowed them to avoid the wandering magical beasts in the surroundings. This made Xinxia think someone was giving Mo Fan directions through the use of a satellite. As they continued walking, there was indeed not a single problem. Occasionally, there would be a few magical beasts appearing. However, it looked as though they were frightened of something, and thus decided to turn around and leave. This was all seen by Xinxia. After continuously moving down the street for a long time, she couldn't help but ask, "Brother Mo Fan, why does it look like they're actually afraid of you instead?" Indeed, even when these wandering magical beasts saw them, they would intentionally avoid the pair. This did not conform to the typical traits of a magical beast, who would try to eat everything they met. Furthermore, Xinxia was able to see traces of fear within the eyes of those magical beasts. "That is because they aren't stupid. They were able to sense that I'm stronger from the aura emitted from my body," Mo Fan said with a smile. "Your aura is stronger than theirs?" Xinxia lowered her head and thought it over. A few seconds later, she suddenly came to a realization before an emotional smile appeared on her pretty face. "Brother Mo Fan, you're already an intermediate magician?" "That's right, ha ha ha. If these little magical beasts don't form a group, then they'd be sending themselves over to die." Mo Fan gave her a splendid smile. The difference between primary and intermediate magician was like heaven and earth. When he entered the shopping mall, he was cautious and advanced gradually, as he was afraid of alarming any magical beasts. Now, Mo Fan was able to leisurely walk in front of them, and they would not dare to do anything to him. If they did anything, then he'd be able to kill them in just a single move. Naturally, Mo Fan would not personally go and look for trouble. The truth was, he had not completed his intermediate magic. The reason he was able to cast the intermediate grade magic was because of the 4-star Atlas books given to him by the great beauty, Mrs. Tangyue. Mo Fan had already used 2 books, and his hands were currently holding the other 2-star Atlas books. This meant he was only capable of using intermediate magic twice from now on, and furthermore, the consumption of magic energy was high. Thus, Mo Fan would also not purposely provoke them. "I see. In that case, Brother Mo Fan's perception has also gotten much stronger?" Xinxia happily asked. "Yes, I am able to sense any activity of magical beast in the surroundings, even if they are 2 streets away," Mo Fan confirmed. Intermediate magicians possessed the ability of perception. This kind of perception was not only able to quickly sense the activity in their surroundings, but was also able to quickly feel fluctuations of energy. If someone tried to mount a sneak attack, then they'd be within the scope of an intermediate magician's perception. This allowed the intermediate magicians to immediately counter such attacks. This made them much stronger than a primary magician. Xinxia's joy was displayed on her face. Her rosy face coupled with excitement made her extremely adorable, and made Mo Fan want to give her a kiss. As Xinxia was about to say something, she suddenly found Mo Fan creasing his brow as his entire person seemed to become increasingly solemn. "What's wrong?" Xinxia whispered. "Shit, don't tell me there really is a group of magical beasts coming for me." "Let's hide first," Mo Fan cursed. Mo Fan hurriedly pushed Xinxia toward a building. Without listening to Xinxia, Mo Fan directly carried her as he quickly ran toward the top of the building. Usually, Mo Fan would definitely smell the fragrance from Xinxia's body and take advantage of her waist or something. But Mo Fan didn't dare to let his imagination roam at this moment, as he sensed a large group of magical beasts in the vicinity. These magical beasts were running. Their movements were extremely fast. By the time Mo Fan had gotten to the inside of the building, he was able to hear the rumbling noise that came from the streets far away. Mo Fan carried Xinxia as he ran to the 5th floor. He was able to see an uncountable number of magical beasts in the street next to them from the window. One-eyed magic wolves, colossal-eyed ape rats. These malevolent things were like a tide as they quickly filled the streets. Furthermore, they looked as though they were frantically chasing something. As Yi Xinxia was being carried by Mo Fan, she also did not dare to take any deep breaths. She was also able to sense the torrential aura of the magical beasts engulfing the place. If they were discovered, then even if Mo Fan was an intermediate magician, they would also be engulfed by this tide of magical beasts. It's the instructors. Mo Fan finally saw a group of people who were running frantically. On the street, Instructor Luo Yunbo was flying by using wind trail, and the person he was dragging along was precisely the female instructor, Pan Li Jun. The other battle mage was also fleeing on the other street. Guiding these fleeing people was precisely the captain of the hunter squad, Shu Dahuang. From Mo Fan's location, he was able to see Minwen Girls' Middle School. As he looked that way, he discovered that there was a massive collapse of the school building, especially around the cafeteria. There was no longer any trace of the cafeteria or the playground. It had turned into a large crater. They succeeded. Mo Fan was ecstatic. The magical beast's entrance inside the Minwen district was extremely large. If they were able to destroy it, then it could be considered as stopping the advance of the magical beast horde, and Bo City could be considered saved. What about Officer Cheng? Mo Fan quickly noticed that this person was nowhere to be seen. It appeared as if these 4 being chased were all that remained. Furthermore, it was clear that Luo Yunbo and Pan Li Jun had been surrounded by the magical beasts, and they would definitely be engulfed by the magical beasts very soon. They all died? Mo Fan's face revealed helplessness. This was indeed a mission you didn't return from. Even Officer Cheng, an intermediate magician, died in that place. Xinxia, let's go to the roof. Mo Fan carried Xinxia as he walked toward the roof of the building. They were the warriors of Bo City. No matter what happened, Mo Fan couldn't just sit there and watch them die. Chapter 119 A Fist Dropping from the Heavens. As evening approached, Bo City was still shrouded in a dim layer of mist. Usually, there'd be shining lights in Bo City around this time. Now, other than the misty drizzles within the dull gray area, there were the non-stop growls and roars coming from around the city. This made the survivors wonder whether this was a city for humans to live in, or just a hunting ground for the magical beasts. In Minwen, there were corpses lying everywhere in the area, making it look inescapable. Every second, there were people being dragged out of their hiding places and quickly becoming food in the bellies of the invading magical beasts. Just at this moment, as the sunset left a ray of dim light through the dark night, many hordes of magical beasts were rampaging through the streets. They were extremely furious because a group of cursed humans had destroyed their precious passageway. There were still many magical beasts who had yet to taste this beautiful gourmet dish called humans. Their passageway into the city was unexpectedly destroyed before they were able to completely conquer this place. The magical beasts nearby were angry, frantically hunting down those humans who had destroyed the passageway. They definitely would not take a step back from this matter, even if there was an intermediate magician amongst the humans. That relatively powerful human had already been killed by them, leaving behind 4 people who were fleeing like rats. Yunbo, forget it. We can't run anymore. Pan Li Jun looked sadly at Luo Yunbo, who was using all of his energy to run away, her face resigned. She was prepared to never return the moment she had joined the mission squad. With the entry tunnel destroyed, along with the sacrifice of Officer Cheng, how could mere primary magicians possibly escape from the pursuit of the magical beasts? What stupid talk. Their speed can't match mine. Believe me, we will definitely escape. Luo Yunbo cursed. Luo Yunbo hadn't given up yet. There was no officer who wasn't afraid of dying. They were just more resolute compared to common people. They would not hesitate if there came a time where they had to sacrifice themselves. The mission was complete. Officer Cheng used his very last magic to open up a passage for them in hope that they wouldn't give up. Life was precious. Tens of thousands of people had already died in Bo City. Luo Yunbo grew up in this city, and didn't wish to see any more casualties. Furthermore, he didn't want to see his comrade Pan Li Jun fall into the jaws of the magical beasts. In short, he wouldn't give up. He wanted to live. He still wanted to see Boss Zhongkong's glorious return with the Darkwing Wolf's head. He wanted to see every one of the magical beasts banished from Bo City. Furthermore, he wanted to see Bo City's rapid restoration to its old peaceful days, with no miserable shrieks nor sounds of cries. Luo Yunbo didn't want to die. He also wouldn't allow Pan Li Jun to give up like this. Ah woo! Ah woo! Suddenly, there were 6 one-eyed magic wolves blocking Luo Yunbo and Pan Li Jun's escape route at the intersection ahead. On this long road, there was no other alley to use. There were hundreds of magical beasts chasing behind them, and these two people simply couldn't push through with their insignificant strength. There were even 6 one-eyed magic wolves in front, cutting off their last way out. Pan Li Jun displayed traces of relief on her face. She didn't want to put up a pointless struggle. She was going to die either way, and she felt that it was pointless for her to live in this world by herself. Luo Yunbo was not resigned to his fate. Even if there were hundreds of magical beasts chasing them, they could only dream of catching up to him, unless there was a warrior-class magical beast amongst them. They would still have had a chance at survival after they passed this long street. Unfortunately, there were 6 wandering magical beasts here. It was clear that they were called by their packmates to block this route. I won't give up. If I was just a little bit stronger, the result would have been completely different. Luo Yunbo swept his surroundings in hopes of finding a chance at survival. Alas, nothing was there. However, he didn't know why there was the glow of flames on the roof of a building. Burn! Within the dark night, a fire like a falling meteor dazzled Luo Yunbo's eyes. It was brimming with the aura of destruction. That fist would surely be the great Mo Fan's, fiery fist. Fiery fist. Day and night had practically reached a boundary point at this moment. At this exact moment, a fiery blaze began to illuminate the entire shadowed street area from the roof of a building. With his entire body covered in flames, he stood on the corner of the roof, looking like a crazed blaze demon. Standing on top of the city, the fire blazed in the dark night as a wave of heat heavily slapped onto everything. The air temperature had nearly achieved the point of combustion. As Mo Fan frantically brandished his fiery fist, the gigantic fist of flames broke through the dark night like a power resisting the god of darkness. The surroundings had been lit up brightly. That gigantic fist of flames had even evolved into a burning meteor. It beautifully flew past a few buildings, heading straight toward the crossroad. Pung! 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 That fist of flames was born to destroy. Those 6 greedy one-eyed magic wolves never imagined that flames would come down from the sky, just like a giant heavily throwing his punch on them. The one-eyed magic wolves were flustered as they attempted to escape, but it was too late. They still were engulfed by the wave of flames. At the intersection where the humongous fist of flames landed, a massive fiery crater suddenly appeared. Those 6 one-eyed magic wolves that had blocked the path of Luo Yunbo and Pan Li Jun were burned into ash, along with some fleeing piteously. Luo Yunbo and Pan Li Jun were shocked. It was like a blessing from the heavens. A fist of flames suddenly saved them at the moment they were stepping into the gates of hell. Their current emotions could not be described with mere words. Luo Yunbo's reaction was very fast. He cast Wind Trail once again to flee with Pan Li Jun. When passing by that massive hole, Luo Yunbo couldn't help but turn around to see where the bright flames came from. The shadow in flames. Why did it look so familiar? Why did it look like Mo Fan, who had gone off to find his relative? Could I be mistaken? Pan Li Jun also turned around to see. She had never imagined that a miracle would happen when she was on the verge of death. This miracle came from the mysterious man on the rooftop. Who is he? Were there still experts in Bo City that we did not know of? Why was he willing to save us? When the radiance of the flames slowly faded, the district descended into darkness once more. Xinxia was quietly sitting on the rooftop. The teenaged girl's elegance fluttered along with the waves of flames. Together with her dark hair, the rooftop had formed into an aesthetically moving piece of art. However, her beautiful face didn't hide her astonishment. Her pretty eyes were focused on the shadow on the edge of the rooftop. Even if she knew that he had reached the intermediate level, Xinxia felt that Mo Fan's entire temperament had changed, along with the overbearing flame aura enveloping his entire body as he shot out a fist of flames into the night. In Xinxia's heart, Mo Fan had always been a heartwarming ruffian who was always sharing silly thoughts with her. It was hard for her to imagine that he had grasped such a solemn, absolute power. Mo Fan turned around as he realized Xinxia's gaze had never once left his face, before he subconsciously asked with a bashful grin, "Didn't I look cool?" Only now did Xinxia realize how she seemed a bit silly as she stared at him. Her face immediately turned bright red. She averted her gaze as she no longer dared to look into Mo Fan's eyes. At this moment, Xinxia finally understood what it meant to have butterflies in her stomach. Chapter 120 Moving Locations. Mo Fan also wanted to help Xu Dawang's group. However, he was too far away from them. His fiery fist couldn't possibly reach that far. Also, Xu Dawang's party was surrounded by magical beasts. Whether they could survive or not was a question still to be answered. After finishing his moves, Mo Fan lifted Xinxia up and quickly fled the building. Those magical beasts weren't blind, and having been so flagrant disturbed them. Even if he were an intermediate-class magician, they wouldn't give up. Intermediate-class magicians were strong. They could instantly kill a magical beast if their skills were perfected. But at the same time, if there were many beasts, the number of beasts could also take down a magician. Furthermore, if the beasts couldn't kill a magician, they could always cry out to their leaders. The general class of magic beasts would never fear an intermediate magician. As expected, not so long after Mo Fan used his skill, this whole building was surrounded by dozens of magic beasts, and there were loads more on their way to the building. Luckily, Mo Fan had fled the building quickly along with Yi Xinxia. If not, he would have paid his life for nothing after saving her. Mo Fan now had only one star map book left. Unless those dozens of magic beasts were obedient and stupid, and grouped themselves up in a circle so Mo Fan could hit them all with a fire fist, one intermediate-class magician was certainly not enough to kill them all. Mo Fan quit while he was ahead, fleeing as fast as he could. Not long after, Mo Fan arrived at the Jia Bridge. At the bridge, there was still a dark motorcycle left by the military. If they didn't meet a general-class magical beast, they could basically reach the safety shelter safely. The night was getting darker, and a fierce wind whistled in their ears. The night was black as a panther and blended into the dreary view. From Jia Bridge, it was easy to see Bo City covered in darkness. From time to time, some bright magic spell could be seen from some streets, and there was also some growling to be heard coming out from the buildings. After so many decades of peaceful times, who would have thought that this kind of catastrophe would fall upon this city? Or was this just saying that this world was never peaceful, war could always happen? It was completely different from the world Mo Fan was born in. There, humans were always starting a war with other humans. In here, it was hard for humans and magical beasts to live together. Mo Fan didn't know if Bo City would change or not at the next dawn, or if the magicians would be able to fully drive the magical beasts out of the city. He could only follow his own beliefs when Xinxia was hiding, and was now in deep sleep in his arms. It was when Zhang Xiaohu cried out and said those words, "I must make myself stronger. I am lucky, because the person that I care the most about didn't die in this catastrophe, but I don't think I will be lucky all the time. If I arrived at the freezer, and was holding Xinxia's ice-cold corpse, then I would have blamed myself my whole life. Why didn't I become stronger? Xinxia, we're nearly there." Mo Fan's eyes were set on the safety shelter. Along the way, the butterflies inside him still had not settled. Xinxia took a deep breath. The feeling of being alive felt so good. I heard that there's a one-winged magic item. If your legs still aren't healed, I'll make you into a fairy. Mo Fan asked her. It's very expensive. Doesn't matter if it's expensive. Your brother, is good at earning money. I also can buy you a different style. Bird type, butterfly type, fairy type, monster wing type. That's disgusting. Doesn't fit our pretty style. Finally arriving back at the safety shelter, the rest of the night quietly passed. At daybreak, the clouds were overcome by the sunrise. The bright rays were trickling down to the hills, rivers, and city. Mo Fan was half leaning on one side of the wall, and hazily opened his eyes. He could hear people cheering, but didn't know why. After seeing the snow-white sky eagles coming from the direction of the sun, Mo Fan couldn't help himself and grew excited. They were reinforcements. Reinforcements have finally arrived. One big group of sky eagles. Every sky eagle was equivalent to an intermediate-class magician. This southern city had encountered such a disaster. Everything was so sudden, and on top of that, the location of Bo City was relatively remote. If the military called for backup, it would normally take some time. But, from the look of this flying wing of sky eagles, the higher-ups must be quite indignant. If not, why would they transfer such super-elite sky eagle magician troops forward? Intermediate-class magicians in Bo City itself were quite limited. Those 9 sky eagle troops that were under Boss Zon Kong were all fighting alongside him against the Darkwing Wolf. Whether they were dead or alive, he didn't know. It was hard to have enough intermediate-class magicians to fight those murderous magical beasts again, especially with that general-class creature, who was like a living nightmare. The army troops on Sky Eagles swiftly flew over Bo City and landed on the watchtower. Watching each high and grand white eagle landing, seeing those military magicians' aura given off, he knew that Bo City was finally defended. The purpose of the Sky Eagle team was very simple. It was to hunt and kill the general-class beast roaming around the city. Once the general-class beast was dealt with, then the servant-class monsters couldn't defend against the magicians' bombardment. The night before, the magicians needed to hide in the safety shelter, using a defensive position to fight against the beasts. But now, all the magicians had split into small groups. They were using the safety shelter as a strongpoint to deploy from and hunt the magical beasts in Bo City. The entrances of the beasts were being destroyed in succession. Killing one beast in Bo City meant having one less threat. The whole place was turning into an extermination zone. The extermination had been going on for the whole week. It included the sewer being relentlessly cleaned a few times over. Maybe there were a few rats left behind, but they definitely wouldn't come out to the surface. After many days of hunting, Bo City finally returned to a peaceful state. Only, Bo City wasn't what it was before. There were destroyed buildings everywhere, fallen bridges here and there. Everything was a mess, and occasionally there was some corpse found by children playing, scaring and frightening them. This Bo City wasn't the old Bo City anymore. That evil rain had left many people with a shadow on their hearts. They couldn't sleep, and were even afraid of the rain. The whole city was bathed in gray-white. Many people lost relatives, and tens of thousands of people had died. Even if this city still stood, it was no different than a graveyard. Everybody is leaving. Mo Jiaxing was sitting in the house, smoking with a sad face. Mo Fan's auntie Mo Qing was still alive, but his uncle's fate was still unknown. The list of confirmed dead didn't have his name, so it was entirely possible that his corpse was gone. The government means that us Bo City citizens will be placed in another city, Mo Fan explained. It'll feel the same as a refugee, displaced, living under others. I'll just stay here, you guys can go, Mo Qing said with a depressed face.